It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show!
Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name's Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
Les Webster.
Hello, all.
And Les Newman.
Hello, everybody.
How are you guys doing?
Delightful.
Yep.
Peachy.
Embalmed.
Ain't that the truth?
I'm sorry, I had Three Stooges flashback right there, so.
Can't imagine why.
Yeah, I don't know why. Hope everybody out there is doing okay. And do apologize for not having a new episode last week, but, 2020, what can we say?
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
Yes.
So, what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Y'all want me to go first?
Go ahead. Absolutely.
Yeah, 2020's been a thing. It's really been a thing. But it's starting to look better. So I won't get into misery and depression and gloom. But I did read a couple of didn't read them. I'm sorry. I guess I kind of do because I always leave closed captioning on. but I watched a few series. I started the new Harley Quinn series. I didn't know if I would like that one or not. And it kind of threw me at first when you hear Penny as Harley. But after a while, you get used to that. And it's kind of cute. I like the way they've explained her costume change in this one. It wasn't just a here it is, like it or lump it kind of thing, but it was kind of her breaking away from the Joker kind of thing, and it made sense. So I'll take it. I'll accept it. But it is really cute. It is not made for children. I wouldn't even say preteens because a lot of the language, of course, it's Harley, so you have the sex, violence, rock and roll, woohoo. But it is pretty cute if you're a fan of Harley. This is the typical funny, not a bimbo kind of Harley that I like. So I'm curious to, I'm excited to finish that one. I heard they are coming back for season 3. So, woohoo. Speaking of season 3, I don't know if you guys heard the news. The Boys is coming back for season 3. They haven't even released season 2 yet, but everyone is hyped for season 3 because Jensen Ackles will be joining them as Soldier Boy. Kind of weird. I hadn't watched the show until I heard that Jensen was going to be on it. Yeah, go figure.
Suspicious.
But it's one of those that I've heard really good things about it, and I don't know why I didn't watch it yet. I guess when you think of shows to watch, you don't go, oh, I'll go to Amazon. So I'm still getting the hang of that. But it's pretty good. For Jensen, this end of it, it's kind of weird because he's going to go from the hunter to the hunted. So, plus he's like the pansy version of, I think they said Captain America. So it should be really cute. I'm excited about that one.
Interesting.
But then we kind of touched base on a before show. Of course, DC did their big 7-8 hour convention thing. There was a lot of trailers and excitement, and I don't know, kind of watching the whole thing. It was kind of great because it reminded me of why I like comics so much. Just the different people who have touched it and inspired it, and what they're doing with it now, and it was really good. I I think the part that impressed me the most was the stage that they were on. It was all completely hand-drawn by Jim Lee. Of course, with the pandemic right now, you couldn't put people together to talk and, do your normal panel thing. But until they kind of broke that part of the show down, I wouldn't have realized that. I really did think that a lot of them were like standing next to each other, but it was all like 3D and CGI, and it was pretty good. For the whole fandom of DC to be in one area at one time, I was expecting crazy lag, get thrown off, gonna be so slow to get through the, 8 hours, but I didn't experience any hiccups at all, even on my laptop, which is a little slower than my computer. It was great, so it was pretty cool. But for me, the best part of the whole entire thing was the new Batman trailer. Oh my God. I think that's all I could say through the whole thing was, oh my God, oh my God. We talked about it before, I think during casting, and Les had picked Robert Pattinson for somebody. And I was kind of like, ha ha ha, twinkling vampire, I have to say, after Les was like, no, look into his indie work, I did. I think some of the stuff that he has been on, Michael Reeves hit it right on the head. He's kind of a chameleon. You don't really go, oh, hey, that's Robert Pattinson, because he gets so far into character that he's almost unrecognizable. So after I took Les's advice and watched some of his older stuff and heard what the director had to say, I think he's going to step in and own this Batman part. We're looking at a year 2 Batman where he's still kind of clumsy and still figuring out what his bat suit should be made out of, what he should be driving, if I get hit here, what's going to happen. So I know people have tried to put an origin to Batman, but I'm curious to see him in this stage where we're going to get a Batman who's not perfect. He is still like, vigilante. People hate him. They don't trust him right now. He's still kind of clumsy and, not as suave as we think of Batman. So I'm excited. I really am. And then, of course, when he said that his main inspiration was Darwyn Cooke's Batman, it was like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. This is the detective Batman we have been asking for. So I'm super excited about that one. And Black Adam looks really, really good, too. I think the best thing they could have done is have The Rock hype his own show, because I'm sold.
Dude spent way too long in professional wrestling to not be a hype artist. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Seriously, give him credit. He did that for a long time.
And he's been talking about this part forever. So to see the clips to it and his story finally come out, you could tell he was so excited to show us that, hey, I haven't been blowing smoke. I really am going to be Black Adam.
And if anyone ever looked like a character, he definitely looks like Black Adam.
To a T. And I wasn't too big in wrestling or anything else, but they've kind of got to have that good bad guy thing going on, which Rock does. He could do both, Mm-hmm. So I think DC, I hate to say it, I'm going to knock on wood here, but with all of the trailers, the Wonder Woman, the games, and everything else they've got coming out, I feel that this was one way of reassuring the fans we're fine. We're not going anywhere. I know there's a lot of shakeups right now, but we're good. We've got a plan. So hopefully, hopefully. But I think with the movies, we may actually break that yuck they've been putting out. So fingers crossed. I'm excited for them.
I just hope they have more of a plan than they had for those movies you're talking about, for sure. But
yeah.
Yeah, that's the concern. You talk about the there being some concern about DC, and you say, yeah, well, here's all these trailers for the movies. You can talk about the video games, so it's like, yeah, but what about the source material?
Right.
Right. How much of that 8 hours did they actually talk about comics, you know?
Jim Lee did address the comics, and I kind of had to laugh when he said it, but he was like, here at DC, we give them a very creative environment, and they can tell the stories that they want to tell, and it's like,
Really?
Sure they can. As long as they don't show a Batwing, or as long as they don't do this, or as long as the Joker isn't in a crucifix position, yeah, they can write whatever they want. So, yeah, I think he's trying to sell that hard, But I
he
think
has to.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the party line, and that's fine, I guess, in its own way. But yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see
But I
how
think
it
if
pays
it was
off.
that nurturing and creative, we wouldn't see people like Scott Snyder going, after this, I'm done and I'm going to go do my own thing.
Hmm.
If you're taking care of people, they stay.
Yeah, I mean, seriously though, creative burnout is a thing, and he's been there a while. I mean, in all reality,
Yeah.
I could see him
Yeah.
just sort of being ready to do something different.
Well, and want to work on his own projects instead of working on characters that are not his.
Right.
True.
I totally understand that.
And I know his Kickstarter man has killed it. So he's going to do good outside of DC too.
Oh, sure.
Well, I mean, he already has with American Vampire and some of the other stuff he's didn't he do Witches?
Witches, yeah.
For
Yeah.
Images a couple of years ago. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that went over pretty well.
Yep.
Yeah. That's about all I've done, though. Waiting for Phil to catch up so I can finish watching The Boys.
Oh, jeez.
Can't believe you fell into that trap. Jeez.
Right. I knew as soon as he started watching, I should turn the TV off. No,
Mhm.
no. Don't look.
Should have never let him start.
Yes, he's beating up a superhero. Don't look, don't look.
That's probably why he likes it.
I think so.
All of his
I
pent
really
up
think so.
frustration at comics over the years, Yeah, that's way more exciting than stuff I've been up to. Actually, I hesitate to use the Liz version of I haven't done much this week, but most of what I've been doing is background type stuff, though. So it's stuff I can't talk specifically about. I mean, I can hint that I've been trying to get ahead on stuff for the podcast, and but because we've dropped hints about October already, so
Yeah.
I've been trying to, and honestly, what we're going to talk about this week had a good bit of watching involved, so there was a couple of movies there that I've had to squeeze in, and on top of that, and I'm not a guy who just sits down and watches a movie. I kind of can't do that. My brain isn't wired that way anymore. So it takes me a lot longer than it should. So me watching a bunch of movies takes a ridiculous amount of time, and I'm also doing other stuff. But I've also got another thing that will probably come up in September that I'll talk about when it happens. I don't think I've even told you guys about it yet. But, yeah, it should be fun. And what else? Starting to get prepped for yeah. I said that. I will say this: things are starting to come together nicely for our All the Horror contribution this year. I am excited. We're going to have to start getting on that soon, and things are falling into place nicely. Plans are happening.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
That's cool.
Okay. Les?
Well, I've been sitting on my ass a lot too, but I was very happy to see that they have just released a movie on that's available on Amazon called Tesla, about Nikola Tesla and his fight to become known as he should be. And I was wanting to see this. I haven't been able to sit down yet, but I want to see this to see how they play the two main characters in it, Tesla and Edison, and see if they lean heavy one way or the other. I've got a feeling it may be that way, but after rereading Boston Metaphysical, I then reread the 5/5 of Science, which tosses Tesla in a different manner. He's treated differently. In the first, he was somewhat of a villain. In the second book, he was more the hero. So, just trying to see what individual writers do with the characters. And the 5/5 I thought was really good because he was treated more of as an underdog, and it brought forth a lot of information that I was not aware of at the time. So between that and picking up some of the movies that we'll be discussing, and one of them I want to talk about right now, but it's so god awful.
We'll get there.
Hang in there.
Almost there.
Almost.
But
He saw it, Mikey. He saw it.
well,
Yeah.
I have seen it before, but
And you had come this close to forgetting it,
yeah, exactly.
and then we brought
And
it back
now
up.
I'll never be able to wash it out of my mind again.
You're welcome.
Now I'm scared.
Mm.
I guess I haven't got there yet.
I wish I could say stay away, but
It's too
it's
late.
required reading. So
It's required viewing.
Too late.
You knew the job was dangerous when you signed up for it.
and believe me, they do disregard that you were ever a member of this organization. So you got to tread lightly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, since everybody else has kind of mentioned it, I'm prepping for October. And it's funny because we're talking about kind of hyping up October. I'm already setting up things for next October. How about that?
That's just you're just that kind of planner. That's all.
Yeah, it is. And we'll be announcing the subject matter for our October films here in the next few weeks. But you know what? If you're on our Discord, you might find out before then. How's that?
Ooh.
Dun, dun, dun.
Teaser.
Dang. Oh no, you didn't.
No, I hadn't done it yet.
Not yet, but you will.
But I will. You'll find out first if you're you'll find out beforehand if you're on our Discord. So how's that for an added incentive to join us?
There you go.
Yeah, I mean we're at the time of the year where a lot of our topics for the rest of the year has been kind of penciled in, not so much inked in, but penciled in. So I'm already starting to try to put together things for 2021. At least have some kind of a list. Of course, I don't have to nail anything out soon, but just already doing it since it was already top of mind. So, yeah, I'm excited about October. Should be fun for the most part.
Oh, it'll be fun one way or the other.
Well, that's true. So, since I already mentioned it, and we'll go ahead and use that as a segue, we do have a Discord that y'all are more than welcome to come join. We have some very interesting conversations. We have some fun stuff on there. There was talk about possibly setting up a D&D bot. Mikey and I haven't really discussed that too much other than what little we did several weeks ago, but who knows, we might set up a bot to where we can actually do a little D&D on this Discord. But if you want to join us and join our friends and fans of the show, you can do that. Go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and right there in big letters, a sign that says "Join our Discord." Just click on that, and you'll be automatically invited. And you can join in and have a good time. I've been enjoying the heck out of it.
I like it because there's a lot of different opinions, but it's all civil.
Yep.
You know, so it's really cool to be able to get a different opinion and be like, wow, I didn't think of it that way. So.
And I'll tell you that, my friend Patrick, who I've mentioned on this podcast several times, who streams on Twitch and does the art role play for Red Dead Redemption, the Wild West RP. He mentioned that the other day. He was talking about, he doesn't get into the conversation, but he kind of lurks and all that. But he made a comment about that, about us having such different opinions about a subject matter, but everything has been respectful and nice. There's no yelling or name calling or anything, that kind of thing. It's been very civil. So yeah, he mentioned that as well. So
it must be true if two people say it.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, hell, it was right when I said it.
Well, I didn't doubt you.
Yeah, but you feel you're a little biased, aren't you? I mean,
I, for one, love being in a social group where I'm the only one actually calling people names and cussing and stuff. So it's good for me,
Right.
Anyway.
Anywho.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yep.
Yep. With each passing day, I am thinking this was the right decision to do this, because this has been fun so far, and we're happy to have y'all join us as well. So yeah, it's not that difficult to set up a Discord account if you don't have one, and we've got some ideas about what other fun stuff we might be doing. We may be having a virtual meet and gab since we can't have one in person right now due to the current pandemic situation. So, we may be joined that way since you couldn't do it when we were doing live appearances. It would be easier to do it on Discord. So.
Yep. You don't even have to get dressed.
There you go.
You don't have to buy plane tickets to come see us either.
That's right. So.
Feel free to keep that information to yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, if you're not going to wear pants, please keep the camera up. Actually, probably, I don't even know if we'll do cameras, but we may
I wasn't planning on it.
Yeah, I was going to say we may not want to, just at least the
No.
first couple of times anyway, just in case.
The big selling point for me was no makeup.
Me too.
I know, right? It takes forever.
It does.
Alrighty. For this week, we're going to talk about two particular movies that happen to be celebrating this 30th anniversary. Kind of kind of, wouldn't you say kind of on a vibe scale, they're kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum?
Totally.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
One's more light, one's more dark.
Yep.
Oh, I get it.
That's a Les pun right there.
Wait, hey, what?
That's why he got it.
Yeah.
Wow. Right at the knees, folks.
Right at the.
Chop block right here.
I don't remember a bus in either of these movies either, so I don't know.
I don't know. In the first one, there might have been.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. So, if you didn't catch that hint, one of the films is Darkman, and the other one is Dick Tracy. So, you know what? I'm just gonna I'm gonna just open up the floor, and whichever film y'all would like to discuss first, go ahead, and I'll join in.
I'll have to say, out of the two, my favorite was Dick Tracy. I've never been a big fan of Dick Tracy. James was, so I kind of got into it. But I think on this movie, if you think of a movie panel from panel that looks and feels like a comic book, it's Dick Tracy. I mean, the colors, the outfits, it was total Dick Tracy. Of course, Danny Elfman sets the tune in this one, and he also did in Darkman too.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Dick Tracy did what Batman and Robin was trying to do, and went too campy, and it didn't work for Batman. But it really seemed to work with Dick Tracy, because in the newspapers and in the books and stuff, he's that kind of, gee golly, you know. And that's the way the movie is, you know. He can fight, and he does, but I think during the time this movie came out was right before Madonna went into her, I don't know how to describe it other than her porn star phase. And even her
That's
music.
one way to describe it.
Right. Well, her music, I remember when she first came out, she was different. And it was cool. She was kind of punky, rebellious, you know, especially Papa Don't Preach was like, sing it, sister, you know. But after that, when she got into her Vogue stage, it was like a totally, completely different Madonna. It was kind of mainstream Madonna after Who's That Girl and that kind of stuff projected her, you know. But in this one, I liked the part she played. I don't remember watching this one. I know I had seen it before, but when they do the big reveal of No Face, I was surprised. I don't know if anybody... I was totally surprised. I did not see that coming, you know. Yeah, it was kind of like, wow. Yeah, they really covered up her body. You know?
That's the great thing about those big old baggy suits they were wearing throughout the whole movie is there was no definition there. I mean, and they made a point. Oh boy, did they make a point of defining her body in that movie. Jeez.
Oh yeah, they did, and that would have been the comic book style thing. She was the sultry, sexy one, you know. But yeah, that's kind of why I was surprised, you know. But I liked it. I really did. I thought the story moved good, and I thought they kind of kept true to the characters and who they played. The little kid, I'm hungry. When do we eat? When do we eat? Yeah, I happen to like it. I think their casting choices, I don't think we could have done better.
Is this a challenge?
Right. Hey.
Maybe.
There you go.
Where's my pen? Oh. And thank you for that, because I've actually needed some more. I needed to come up with some more casting call things. So.
Oh Lord.
We're making a 2020 Dick Tracy.
Yeah, we can do that.
I think that would be better than recasting the 1990 one. But
Yeah.
let's do it again better now.
So I take it you didn't like it.
What clued you in? I mean, geez. Okay, so this is I think I probably would have liked this movie better if I'd seen it 30 years ago. Watching it today, and I'm not literally today, but watching it in the last couple of weeks, I it just I I respectfully disagree. I don't think there was any story at all, and I think that made it a lot easier to make the story run smoothly because they just kind of didn't bother with one. It was honestly it was a little too simple, and even for a Dick Tracy story, I think it was too simplified. Admittedly, they tried to pull the twist at the end, and I'm that weird guy who nobody wants to watch TV with me because I can usually, like 80% of the time, I can pick the killer out in the first 20 minutes of the hour-long TV show. So
Can confirm.
yeah, it just so I'm that guy who almost always spots, I mean, the twist, and it. So I try not to be annoying about it, but yeah, I totally saw that coming. There wasn't really anybody else it could have been. They showed her actively paying attention anytime Big Boy was doing something in her presence. She was clearly watching, and she was clearly thinking about what was going on. But anyway, that is
I
one
didn't think
tiny.
it was her because he wanted to admit that he loved her and wanted her, you know. And honestly, if you think about it, he was asking her to put her life on the line, you know.
But he was doing
And
it
then
as a cop.
for what?
Well, and she
Yeah.
was trying to get more, and I think that the difference with that was that in that final scene, and I actually feel a little bad that we're diving this deep into this one little part of this movie, but the difference there is that at the end, she was pointing the gun at him. If he had said, okay, yes, I love you, let's do this, that gun would have been pointed at Big Boy instead, and it would have been a different scene. But the gun was
Yeah.
pointed at him, and he had pieced it together because he knew she wasn't going to shoot him.
Ah, okay.
So, anyway, I think, like I said, I think we're overdoing this one. See, if we talk in this much detail about every scene in both of these movies, we're gonna be here all night. But yeah, I actually the colors and the costumes and the I will loosely use the term makeup because there's a whole lot more prosthetics there going on. I mean, everybody's wearing prosthetics in this movie. I would even argue that Madonna's probably wearing prosthetics in this movie. But it just was too much for me. I just couldn't handle it. It was irritating from the beginning, and it didn't ever get easier, and it just drove me a little crazy. I will say that yeah, Danny Elfman's music for it did work well. It was a little. I think it was probably a little soon after Batman.
Mm-hmm. It was literally a year.
Because it was a little it was a little more Batman-y than it probably should have been.
Mm-hmm.
But
I
I don't
think
view
that's
that. I don't
actually-
necessarily view that as a bad thing either.
I think that's why I actually looked to see who did the music, honestly.
You had to look? Oh wow!
Yeah.
I didn't have
Yeah.
to look. I knew exactly.
Well-
3 notes in, I'm like, oh, Danny Elfman here.
Yeah. And, you know, and I have, like, CDs of just his instrumental stuff,
Mhm.
you know. But it's one of those things you think, you know, but yeah, you're right. It did sound a lot like Batman.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even more so than it did for Darkman, I thought. Because, yes,
Yeah.
Danny Elfman did music for both movies.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, the Dick Tracy just felt a little more ripped off.
I don't know if it was a Batman thing or if it's a Danny Elfman thing. He's got like a style to his music. You know, it's kind of like a signature on artwork. You don't totally take it over, but like you said, by listening to it, you know who it is because he has that style that I don't know how to explain it.
He does, and by the time you get, I mean, even another year or two down the road, you get movies with soundtracks that have his style without sounding like Batman.
Yeah, you do.
You get into stuff like Edward Scissorhands, and you get, I mean, even later down the road, especially if you get into something like, I can't remember if he did the music for Mars Attacks or not, but I mean, yes, a lot of them are still Tim Burton movies, but the music is still has evolved a lot more by then. At this point, I think it was just they were
very similar.
It was similar, and I don't really mean that in a bad way, other than it was a little jarring to the viewer. But yeah, I mean, he's working on it, and you can kind of tell he's working on it. But that's still the first thing he did, and so it's there.
Well, and I can give you another example of that. The John Wesley Shipp Flash. He did the theme for that. I remember the first time when the first episode debuted, and I heard the music. I'm like, this is Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right, and again, not long after.
Yeah. Right around the same time frame. Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah. It was okay. The other thing the other major point I had for this one was that that final scene that we're talking about, that whole extended sequence from the point when Big Boy takes Tess and is actively running from Tracy, from there, that whole thing, I desperately want to know how much of Big Boy's dialogue in that entire stretch was scripted, because I would absolutely love to believe that Al Pacino ad-libbed all of that, because if you're listening to it, it's just this amazing string of completely random crap just coming out of his mouth. It's unbelievable, and I would hate to think that he had to memorize that. Honestly, that's why I want it to be ad-libbed, because one, if it's ad-libbed, it's genius, and two, if it's written, it had to have been a bitch to memorize.
Yeah.
Because it is completely random. I mean, it's clearly centered on that character, but it's so random otherwise. It's just great.
If someone approaches us and says, yeah, he actually ad-libbed all or a majority of that, I would not be surprised. Because honestly, at that point, some of that I was kind of going between that's funny or shut the fuck up, please.
It's just insane. And for my money, that makes it awesome. I mean, because it's just so nuts the whole time, and he's constantly talking. He's barely taking a breath, and he's running, dragging a woman with him at top speed, and doing that. Oh man, it's amazing. I mean, honestly, that's probably worth the movie for me right there. That scene, him doing that. I mean, because the rest of it. I mean, yes, I like the kid's performance. The one thing that I will say about Warren Beatty's performance is that he should have had a director. He doesn't really seem to know what he's doing, which is weird because I know he's like won awards for his acting. I know he can act, but it's one of those deals where you should not direct yourself.
Yeah.
And he really should not have directed himself. Most of those pauses, those awkward pauses that you were talking about, Tom, they just went on too long. He paused just a little too long every time, and it was weird. It was a little jarring for me.
Yeah.
I would like to have seen somebody rein him in a bit and say, okay, no, do this a little faster next time. Because, bleh. It's too long.
Personally, go ahead.
I was just going to say he needed some direction from George Lucas. Faster, more intense. There you go.
Hey, whatever works, man. Anything's. You could have cut 5 minutes out of that movie if you had just cut the awkward pauses out. And you could, if you'd done it right, you still could have gotten the same effect. But anyway, go ahead, Les.
Sorry, Les. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I'm taking it all in. But I'm going to have to side with Mike on this.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry, but I look at it like an early version of a Seth Rogen movie.
Ooh, that's a little
And we all know how much he loves Seth Rogen.
Wow.
It bored me to tears, and I had high hopes for this, being a reader of the comic strip for one, and I desperately wanted it to work. But unlike my predecessors here, I thought the acting was horrendous from top to bottom. I wanted something to happen. And I was hoping that as I was sitting in the theater, the screen would catch fire, just so I would not have to watch the end of this movie.
Wow.
Realize they're not locking you in, right? You can just walk out.
But I'm one of those, I paid my money, I'm going to sit and bear through it, because you know me and bad movies.
Mm-hmm.
But this was beyond redemption. There's just no way to save this POS. I was not happy with it.
Save me, Thomas.
Anything else, Les?
No, I'm pretty good, thanks.
Yeah, I think it seems like he feels like he's already spent too much time on this movie. But anyway.
Yeah.
Wasted time.
I love the look of the film. It was a literal comic strip.
Yeah.
I like that. I know that may turn some people off, and I get that. It was something different, and I applaud them for doing that. You know, when you know we not necessarily the four of us, although we have done it, when we talk about things being so repetitive and it's the same thing over and over again, this was something different. So I applaud him for doing that. I love the music. I love the look of the film. You know, there were some parts that I thought were, you know, this sequence where Tracy followed the kid back to the man who was stealing stuff for her and started beating the shit out of him, and you watched the little shack go from side to side. It was dumb, but I loved it. It was dumb, but I loved it. I get the whole thing about the acting. Oh God, Pacino was chewing up the freaking curtains up and down. I mean, he was hamming it up
Big time.
Yeah.
And it was pretty obvious. It didn't annoy me too much, except for like at the end where you talked about. I was actually kind of annoyed by Madonna's thing being in the film. It seemed like it was too much. Hey, this is what seemed to have worked with Batman, because we had Prince's music in it. So let's do something similar. And of course, at the time, supposedly Warren Beatty and Madonna were a thing. So yeah, we're gonna have to have her in. We can have her music. Well, hey, she can act a little bit. Let's get her in there. Okay, well, whatever. It's a great cast.
Yeah.
I kind of understand what you said about the prosthetics, but it's like you kind of had to actually do those characters? Was it a little overboard? Could they have trimmed it back a little bit? Maybe, but they look like the characters. They look like the comic strip characters come to life. I mean, I like the film. I will admit it's not a great film. Yeah, I mean, the story is kind of non-existent except for the fact that it's just basically Tracy going after Big Boy, and then the whole quote unquote mystery of No Face. So.
And I think too, as far as story goes, wasn't Dick Tracy just like a strip comic?
Mm-hmm.
So you're putting a whole story together from a strip comic, which was kind of hard to do. I think we have a big book that kind of gathers them all. And even when you read it there, it's not, of course, because it's a strip comic, it's not a smooth story, but it's a story, I think that's kind of what we got with the movie. It wasn't a smooth story, but it was a story. And I think they lacked in story, they made up for the visuals. There was a point where like Dick Tracy walks into the room and he's like a complete shadow, and it's like that's the way he would have been drawn in that newspaper print. It just completely black. It was him, but So I thought it was kind of cool that they did kind of bring those elements into it, which I enjoyed. To where I guess I didn't really notice the lack of a story. But it was
I'll be honest. It really didn't dawn on me until y'all just mentioned it. It was like there really wasn't a story to it.
There wasn't.
There wasn't. I mean, I was just sitting here kind of watching what's going on. I mean, it was just cops and robbers.
Right.
It is a very visual movie, but like I said, I think even like the like montage where he's busting them all down when they had him bugged and they knew a step ahead. It was like even that, just flashes of this and that and this and that. That's what you would see in this strip. They couldn't break it all down and give you that whole thing of him, stakeout and all that other kind of stuff. So to me, it's the closest thing I've seen panel for a comic.
Right. And my issue is that this was a beautiful opportunity for them to do something better.
Yeah.
And they just didn't. It's like it just didn't even occur to them that, oh wait, we could actually have a coherent story and over the course of a 90-minute film. Something that it would be like a treat for Dick Tracy strip readers of old to have, hey, this is like a real honest to God make sense thing that he does. That would have been cool if they'd actually bothered to make a movie while they were doing this. But they chose, and in all fairness, yes, they opted to go with the visuals. And honestly, I will give them credit in that it was worth a shot.
Yeah.
I think it was definitely worth trying to do it that way. Ultimately, I think they could have easily made a better movie for a tenth of what they paid for this thing by just making it animated. And it would have been a lot easier to follow, and it would have been a lot. You could have had the same people, I guess. You would have not done it for a tenth of the budget, but
yeah.
Or you could have had seasoned voice actors do it, and it would have and come up with a little bit of story to go with it, and it would have been 10 times better. But like I said, I guess I can look at it as a grand experiment that just didn't succeed for my taste, and that's fine. I mean, no skin off my nose.
As far as budget, in 1990, the budget on this film was $46 million. That's a lot. I mean,
now, in all fairness, what we refer to as a movie's budget is not necessarily a budget. It's just what they spent on it.
Right.
Because Warren Beatty hadn't really directed that many movies, and every one of them went over budget. So, He was notorious for it even at this point. This is only like his third film, I think. And both of the ones before that had gone hideously over budget, and this was no exception. But yeah, they spent $46 million on this movie.
Yeah.
And made it back and then some. So I mean, it was successful.
It was.
But
And I think that was because of the big names that they threw in there, you know. You had Madonna's fan base, you had Pacino's fan base,
yeah, see,
Warren Beatty, you know, you had all of them.
yeah, I think Madonna being in this movie dates it pretty harshly at this point.
Yep.
But,
Yeah.
because she was really hot in '90, and in
She
the late
was.
'80s, she was on top of the world. I don't know that I think that
I'm going to leave that one alone.
she was on top of Warren Beatty too, but that's beside the point.
Oh, man.
Whoa, whoa.
She's been on top of the world, all right.
She's been on top of a lot of things in the world too. But yeah,
Wow. And I can't brush that out of my ears now.
Can't get it out in.
Now, if I may say, I'm going to come to the defense of Alicia Silverstone, who was cast as Batgirl, and everybody said she hadn't the acting chops. And yet I sat through Dick Tracy thinking that Madonna was going to be a great character actress. No.
Well, I liked her in Desperately Seeking Susan. Was that before or after this one?
That was before.
Was it before? I said, Madonna used to be a different person. You kids nowadays will never know the Madonna we know. But it was almost, like I said, I hate to call any woman a whore, but that was her brand. That's what she sold herself as, you know.
Yeah.
And when she first came out, she wasn't like that. I won't say she was ever reserved, but she was never. I think Madonna symbols the change in women.
Let's be fair. Her outfits were awfully lacy, even at the very beginning. And there was a lot of implied lingerie going on there. I'm just saying, from day one.
But if you think of her like in the video of Lucky Star, that was pretty lacy and stuff. But back in that time,
and
that
she's
was
skipping
punk.
around and rolling around on the floor. There was nothing punk about this, Liz. Come on.
Yeah,
That
but
was
her
pure
outfit
D
was.
pop. It was 100% pop music, and she was selling it.
Yeah, she wasn't punk music, but her look was kind of punky, kind of like Cyndi Lauper. She had a punky look to her too, but she was definitely pop, you know.
I'm just gonna say, you and I remember this way differently
Yeah,
because that ain't what I saw.
but she she wasn't as obvious with it. I'll put it that way. I think she went from halfway covered to cone-shaped bras almost overnight, you know. And that started to become her brand.
Okay.
Her, you know,
Yeah, well,
her body was her brand.
as far as halfway covered goes, I'm just gonna say you and I are looking at different halves, and we'll just let it go at that because
Yeah,
Yeah.
please do.
she was selling sex long before. I don't mean literally. I just mean the idea. That was her thing all the way from the beginning. And yes, she took it further and further as she went along, for sure, until she eventually did finally cross the line and have to rein it back. But which was noticeably after this movie, I believe. But anyway.
Well, I think her turning point was actually Papa Don't Preach. I think she pissed so many people off with that song. You had the Catholics who were upset. You had the Pentecostals who were, everybody was upset with her. And I think she found that, whoa, I make a lot more money when I shock the shit out of people, you know? And from there, it just kept edgier and more edgier and, you know, yeah. To where honestly, if I would have had a little girl at that time, I don't know if I would have let her watch that. You know,
I think a lot of people were making the same decisions for their children at that time too.
Yep.
Yep.
So
But
yeah.
in today's times, that'd be tame. You know?
Yeah.
It's
Mm-hmm.
no biggie. She's overdressed.
Well, maybe.
I don't know about that, but
Right.
But, yeah, you know.
well, you say that about how provocative it was then and how it's tamed now. I had a flashback of watching some, and I don't remember if I've mentioned this before on the podcast before or not, but I was watching a thing on John Ritter, and they were talking about how out there Three's Company was back in the late 80s and late 70s, early 80s. And you watch it now, and there's families that watch that show
Mm-hmm.
because it is now tame
Yep.
compared
Extremely.
to
Yep.
compared to what's there now. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because they touched on the gay topic. They touched on men living with women unmarried. And, you know, yeah, it was a pretty edgy show for the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's wholesome entertainment now because of the pratfalls for John Ritter and some of the jokes, which kids are not going to get most of the jokes anyway.
Mm-mm.
Right.
No.
All right, well, shall we move on to Darkman then?
Oh, we probably should.
Okay.
Darkman. I didn't like this one. Watching being the only one who did. I started this movie like 4 different times because each time it was like, wait a minute, why did they go after him when they knew that the wife had the paper? How did that even bring them to his lab or anything? So I had to stop and restart, and I finally figured out, okay, you know, this is what's going on.
He works from home. That's why.
Yeah. And like I said, it took me a minute to realize that because that was the whole big deal he made. You know, if my mother calls it, you can pick up the phone and answer it. But, yeah, I didn't like this one. It just, I don't know. I wanted to because I like Liam Neeson, but I guess I found it hard to buy. You know? I think just figured or not, if you love someone, that would have been the first person and I would have told them what happened. If I lived, you know, I would want them to know, hey, I lived.
Yeah, well,
I don't want
Liz,
you to
you'd make
suffer.
a boring superhero, though. See, that's the deal.
I would.
Especially in the 90s. I mean, come on. We got to have angst and drama. Jeez. It's the
Yeah.
90s.
But then even after she saw him, I didn't understand why he was like, okay, now you've seen me at my worst, but now I can't be with you. You've got to go. What? What? I just saw your face half melted off, and I'm still wanting to kiss you, you know. Where are you going to find that again?
Right. No kidding.
I don't know. Like I said, it was okay. I won't say it's one of his better films at all. And I always think it's funny. This show, Spawn, golly, pretty much all of them, they wind up naked out in the street, right? And the first trash can they go to in has like a $300 trench coat that he runs around in the rest of the film for. You know? Who the hell's throwing away a $300 trench coat?
Well, that's how you
Something
find your...
from Dick Tracy.
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah. That's how you find your superhero costume, don't you know? You just run out in the street naked and head for the nearest trash can, and there it is.
There it is. Someone got naked in the trash can for you.
By gum.
And not only did they get naked, oh my God, it's just your size.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you're like 6'4", like Liam Neeson. I mean, come on.
Right, you know.
You have to go to the big and tall shop for that jacket. I mean, come on. Which
So it's
automatically,
probably actually $500.
yeah, I was gonna say which doubles the price. Yeah.
So yeah, this one I just didn't get it. I guess I get lost in a lot of movies when they go into the science, you know, and it's kind of like, nah. He melts in the sun and he doesn't in the dark, so only go out in the dark. Vampire rules, right?
They're kind of. Should have gotten Robert Pattinson, huh?
Right, yeah.
Except that
Whoa.
he was like 7 when this movie came out.
Just developing his twinkle,
Working on it anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, this one, I have to say, it wasn't my most enjoyable. But one thing, this was on Amazon. I think it's also on Stars, but I like to watch the movies on Amazon because they have a thing called X-ray. And if you're watching it on a computer, I don't know about smart TVs, but if you're watching it on a computer or your laptop, you can hit the X-ray and it will tell you your characters in the film. It'll tell you what else they've played in. Sometimes it'll give you a little bit of trivia about the scene. But the thing I like is, like, if there's 3 people in the scene, they're only going to tell you who those 3 people are. So it kind of, like when Ted Raimi showed up, it's like, God, why does he look so familiar? Well,
Yeah, because he's in every Sam Raimi
Because
film.
because it's a Sam Raimi movie, that's why.
So yeah, that's kind of cool, but I did have a hard time getting into this. I will say once you get into it, it does move a little bit easier than the Dick Tracy movie did. But yeah, I guess I'm not into the science-y thriller, horror, whatever this was supposed to be.
I have an idea of how to summarize this movie. This movie was Sam Raimi's audition for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And oh boy, was this a Sam Raimi movie. This was such a freaking Sam Raimi movie. I mean, geez. It had everything, including Ted and Bruce, although
Bruce.
only
Yeah.
for a few seconds. Oh, there was one cameo that I was actually a little surprised that I spotted. The hospital scene. One of the doctors. He's wearing a mask, and I still was like, man, that looks an awful lot like John Landis. There's no way he would have been in this movie, though. And then you get to the end credits, I'm like, holy crap, it was John Landis. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't even a speaking role, but it was just interesting to see him there. But yeah, don't feel bad. I didn't particularly like this movie much either. I thought, yes, it had more story than Dick Tracy, but honestly, this is another one that I would have liked a lot better 30 years ago than I did today, because today it seemed so tropey.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he pulled out every trope in the book. Okay, we need a science-y superhero from the 90s. Go. And so this is what you get, because this is exactly the kind of hero you get in the 90s. And you get the mask thing. Okay, that's the science, because it's actually this real, organic, fake flesh thing. I don't know.
Silly putty. That's why it melted in the sun.
To the nth degree, but yeah. And I swear it's like he's telling them all to overact, which is fine. I think that works better if you're directing somebody to overact. I think works better if there's really only 1 or 2 people in the movie doing it. So if it had just been Liam Neeson or it had just been Larry Drake, it would have been fine. Even just the 2 of them, because they're kind of the 2 going at each other for most of the movie.
Yeah.
But it was everybody. Everybody. Frances McDormand, for crying out loud, was overacting. And she was overacting in what had to have been the most poorly written role in a movie that I have seen in a long time. Okay, I get the idea that, I mean, you've completely written a damsel in distress, but you've made her a lawyer, so you've kind of got to give her a brain somehow. But no, we're not really going to do that here. We're just going to make her just get all nervous at everything. She's the most skittish lawyer you could ever possibly meet, and it's just irritating after a while. I mean, she's a really good actress, and man, she was awful in this movie, and it was totally not her fault. It was entirely the role she was handed, and it was hard to watch for that alone. Watching Liam Neeson, though, just literally just go nuts in a role in addition to in the movie was kind of fun. Was it enough to save this movie? No, not at all. Like I said, I would have liked this movie a lot more 30 years ago when I hadn't seen it 50,000 times already. And it's not that this is what was ripped off either. This was the start of the rip-off for this type of thing, and it just, it was hard to get through.
Now, in the other two movies, is it also Liam Neeson?
Oh dear God, I don't know. I wouldn't watch those if you paid me.
No.
Okay.
Neeson was not in the others.
I think Arnold Vosloo was in the second one. I don't know about the third one. And we all know who Arnold Vosloo is, right?
Yeah.
He was the guy in The Mummy.
He was the Mummy. Yep.
In the Brendan Fraser one. Looks like Arnold Vosloo was in the third one as well.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was. The ending was just so cheesy. Which is, again, a Sam Raimi thing, I think, as much as anything. But
Yeah.
Now, does Sam Raimi put his brother in all the stuff like
yes,
James Gunn does?
yes.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
cool, though.
And like Ron Howard does, and
Yeah.
like tons of other people do. But yeah.
That's
Which
cool,
is
though.
which is funny because, I mean, granted, it's hard to tell sometimes because he's mostly only in Sam Raimi movies, but I've seen Ted Raimi act. He can do it.
He can.
This was not the role for that. Honestly, he wasn't in the movie long enough. But
Yeah, he was the first one killed.
yeah. Well, he was the first.
Spoiler.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh, well, a 30-year-old movie.
He was the first of Durant's guys to get killed.
Yeah.
That was a hard scene to watch too, but anyway, not in a bad way. But
See, I kept expecting his little lab assistant to show up somewhere. He survived, so
wait, what?
could have been possible
Who's
for
lab assistant?
Liam Nelson's.
The dude that the reason Ted Raimi's character was killed first was because he was the one who killed his assistant.
Oh, that's right. He
Shot
him in
him
the
right
head.
through the brain. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Durant even said that on the way out the door. He's like, "Nice job, Rick. Right through the brain, just like you should do."
Well, heck, he was electrocuted. He was dumped in that acid stuff. He was blown through the roof into the Hudson, and he lived. I mean, what's a bullet to the brain? Isn't this a comic book movie?
But Neeson had a better.
Contract?
Yeah.
Trajectory?
Better age record.
Yeah. He had a better deal up front, right? And a few more zeros in his salary, but anyway. Honestly, though, I can't argue that point, really, otherwise.
And I think that's almost what he thought when he saw that freak. And he was like, was there anybody else alive? And she was like, no, just you. Well, honey, you didn't even know him until yesterday. So how could you say no?
Which, right.
Yeah. And then she went and told her boss that he was alive. Well, duh.
She didn't know. See, at least that one wasn't quite so badly telegraphed as it was as the one in Dick Tracy. I mean, you really didn't know that Durant was working for the boss until then.
Yeah.
There was no hint at it whatsoever. But anyway.
Well, he told her in the very beginning he was. That's the whole reason he wanted that paper back, and he was going to give her money, and she's like, oh, I can't because I'm in possession of a crime. He told her he was guilty and worked with him. So now you find out that your fiance has died at the hands of this guy, so you go and tell his boss? Oh, my husband. Well, wasn't his husband.
Again, poorly written character.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the deal. That's part of why it was, because she just does the wrong thing at every turn. For the right reasons, but she just has no clue that she's in a superhero movie. No clue.
And then it was also kind of hard to buy that she was like literally outside the door when the apartment blew up. Like I said, enough to blow him through the roof into the river. but
We heard him
she's
screaming
okay.
when he was in midair. Why didn't she? She was right there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
seriously.
she didn't get cut. She didn't get anything, didn't even get blown into the street or anything. I mean, it
She
was kind of
thought
like, what?
she thought it was a sparrow.
Yeah.
African or European? Oh, no, wait, that's a swallow. Sorry.
I mean,
That's why I stayed away from swallow.
Well, there are other reasons to stay away from that, but anyway.
yeah. So I don't know. Between the two movies, Dick Tracy doesn't really put you in a mood where you have to analyze everything. This movie kind of took a very serious tone at the very beginning, so it kind of leads you to nitpick every little thing that's not serious, But I will say that the beginning, the first 5-10 minutes of the movie is very confusing.
No
To the
argument
point where I was like, man, I could just go on the show and tell the guys, I missed this
I
one.
watched the wrong movie.
Oh, Dark
Did you
Man?
watch the Blob
I
again?
watched Danger Mouse.
here. Oh, I would so have rather watched Danger Mouse than this.
We need to
But
do a
that's-
Danger Mouse episode.
I don't think the world's ready for that much gushing.
But yeah,
Well, I've got to go the other direction, folks. I enjoyed this movie. This to me was kind of the start of superhero movies. And this was my first visual of Liam Neeson or Frances McDormand. Although Frances did God, what was the name of that movie done locally? Anyway, I thought this was much better in production. I thought this was something I could actually enjoy, and I did. I was hoping that Tracy didn't ruin it for me, but we've already been down that path. I liked it. I liked the feel. I thought it was nice and dark to promote the name of the character. Yet I thought it was lively enough that I was both entertained and wrapped with attention as they proceeded. The other movie, I was ready to walk out after 10 minutes, but I'd already spent my $4, and it just a diametrically opposed look at film. And I'm sorry, I've just got so much interest in this one versus the other one we reviewed.
yeah.
And Les, the film you're thinking of, Blood Simple.
Thank you. I loved Blood Simple, but I didn't see that till after.
Yeah.
That one I recommend to everybody too. It's really well done.
I like this one. This one had, I mean, I like Dick Tracy too. I know, I acknowledge that there's problems. There's problems with every movie, but there was something about this one. There was a different energy with it. And yeah, there was the whole dark thing, which, obviously Batman kind of started that, and this film obviously took from there. Yeah, I admit the script's badly written. There's once again some chewing of the scenery. but I thought that Liam Neeson was great considering what he was doing, because it was all overacting.
Yeah.
It was. It was, once again, it was kind of, at least in my eyes, it was another unique look. It wasn't something that I'd seen before, but I've seen it since. It to me, I just liked the film. It wasn't great by any means, but it was just kind of a nice couple hours spent. I've done worse. I don't think I could add anything any more than what you guys have done.
One way or the other, right?
One way or the other. Yep.
Now,
Yes.
was Darkman a comic?
No.
No.
Sam Raimi created this
Cool.
straight
But
up.
I think they issued a comic of it. I think
Mhm.
Marvel did it not?
I think so.
Like after.
Yep.
Yes.
See, and I mean, I poke fun at Sam Raimi. I like his movies, and I will also give him a whole lot of credit because he created this clearly, this movie came out in '90, so he had clearly done the work on it beforehand, which preempted a lot of kind of the '90s comics thing, with everything turning dark and the whole anti-hero thing that happened at the beginning of the '90s. I mean, this preempts that by a little bit. So, I mean, he had his finger on something.
Yeah.
How much of this movie actually inspired those people to do that, I don't know. But it was interesting that this kind of came, I don't necessarily want to say before it, but at least along with it.
Now, they said this was a superhero film. Would you consider him a superhero? I mean, he killed for vengeance.
Okay, by '95, yes. This is absolutely, this is essentially The Punisher
Yeah.
to an extent.
Yeah, 'cause-
it's a sci-fi
yeah, 'cause-
version thereof.
Yeah, because at this point in comics, it was pretty much, the Punisher was ruling. You had the Ghost Rider and some of the darker characters. Those were, this was the era of the Asbats, the Azrael Batman.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean,
In that
sorry I
regard,
brought
yes.
up. So sorry I brought that up to you, Les, because I'm sure you try to forget that, but. But that's kind of the time frame that we're looking at.
Okay.
A year before, there was a movie that read like a comic strip or a comic book, and I think Marvel also made a book about it, and that was The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. And to me, that put in a lot of the darkness in Darkman, although Buckaroo Banzai was much lighter in its look. The feel of the material was much lighter. So, it's kind of an offset there. But that too was when I remember seeing Buckaroo when it first opened, and I was dying to find where this comic book came from because they had it pictured in the comic or in the movie. But it wasn't until a couple months after that Marvel issued it, and then it was just that finite story. I was thinking there was something I had missed out there on the market, and that's what I was searching for. So it's not unlike movies to get their own comic, but to base a comic on a movie is a lot different than basing a movie on a comic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is anybody there?
Yeah.
Bueller.
I was hearing crickets.
Bueller.
But if I had to sit down and watch either one of these movies, Dick Tracy or Darkman, I would watch Darkman easily. Dick Tracy, I would have to look like the character in Clockwork Orange with my eyes propped open, having to stare at a screen.
Tell us how you really feel there.
Well,
Challenge accepted.
All right, that can be arranged, sir. No, not really.
that's scary.
That would not be good, right?
That's damn scary.
It is 2020. I mean, I won't put anything past this year.
Yeah. I'm just glad we don't have a rating system that we use to do this. That would be awkward.
Yeah, it would be.
All right. Well, any final thoughts on either one of these films or both of them before we take a break?
One thing that I did write down because I thought it was kind of cool was 88 Keys was Gideon from Criminal Minds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Not who I
Manny
expected
Patinkin.
to see in that movie. So
He was. I think a more timely reference was he was in Princess Bride.
yeah.
He was Inigo Montoya,
Mm-hmm.
which is why he could sing with Madonna and actually kind of out-sing her in that particular moment. But that's a different story.
He did. Yep, that's all I got.
Yep.
Okay, and on that note, we're going to take a quick break and be back with our weekly picks. And we're back, and it's time for our picks. And as you may recall, what we've been doing here over the last few weeks is we pick a new title that's coming out this week, and then our second pick is a title that you might have missed that should be available at your local comic store. But if not, I'm sure they would be more than happy to order that for you. So, with that said, Liz leads off this week.
All right. I'm going to start off with my old pick, and it is called Twilight Children. This one came out in 2016 under the Vertigo label, and it was actually kind of cool because, what is her name? Shelley Bond went to Darwin Cook and was like, hey, I want you to do a story. And he was kind of like, nah, I don't really want to do anything. So he kind of threw a name out there, which was Gilbert Hernandez. If he agrees to do a book with me, then we'll do it. Well, of course, anybody who hears the name Darwin Cook wants to work with you. He jumped at it, and they gave us this fantastic story. It's kind of a mix between science fiction and magic, and it's set off in Latin America in this little village. And I can't tell you too much about the story without giving the whole thing away, but something very weird happens, and like people come up missing after seeing this big bright light, and they try to figure out what's going on in this village. Like I said, really good story. I think it was 4 issues, maybe 5 issues long, so it is kind of a quick read. I absolutely loved it. It was one of those that once you get done with it, you're kind of like, damn, that really happened. So definitely a good story if you like that kind of thing. Like I said, it is a mix between science fiction and magic. They kind of step all over those lines. So excellent artwork, of course. The writing was just superb. So definitely have to check this one out.
Nice.
Yep. Alrighty, Mike, you're next.
Okay. So my first pick is from Image Comics, and it's coming out this weekend. The title of it is Inkblot. It is issue number 1. And this is the story of a sorceress who created a cat that can travel through time, space, and reality, it says. And this is the story of her trying to fix this problem because it's a cat. I mean, come on. What was she thinking? Let's be realistic here. Why did she think that this cat wasn't going to destroy the universe?
Or care.
Right. Or care. You're going to create a cat and make it a Time Lord, and you're not going to really be surprised when the universe goes poof. But anyway, I think this is still going to be a very fun story. And it is also notable because one of the creators is Emma Kubert, who is, yes, that Kubert. She's the 3rd generation comic creator, which is kind of awesome in its own way, and I'm curious to see what she comes up with.
It is. She inherited some talents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one caught my eye for both reasons. The story sounds like it could be a lot of fun, and then the fact that Emma's doing it, definitely caught my attention.
Yeah.
I liked it because when you read it, you could almost see a cat just, like the universe is a glass, just knocking it off the counter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. Oops. You're bad.
Yep.
Wow. Shouldn't have done that, buddy.
Yep.
Okay, I'm next, and for my first pick, it's a new title from Mad Cave Studios called Stargazer, and it's a story of 4 people who, as childhood friends, it's a brother and sister, and then 2 other friends. As children, they witnessed a traumatic event that they could not explain, but what exactly happened. But one of them believed that they were abducted by aliens. Well, flash forward 20 years later, they had gone their separate ways, leaving their own lives. Well, the one who believed that they were abducted by aliens has disappeared. So everybody else comes back together to try to find out what happened to him and actually try to get some answers to what happened to them when they were kids. I kind of dig the story idea here. So this should be, I think it should be an interesting read.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yep. Sounds cool.
Alrighty, I guess that means Les, you're next.
Okay. My first choice comes out this week. It is from Boom Studios, titled We Only Find Them When They're Dead, #1. This is an interesting science fiction story about a group that are recovering the corpses of giant alien gods and are using it to survive. The group is at the edge of space, which I have never really understood where the edge of space is. But the crew, like I said, harvests these corpses, but the captain is obsessed with finding a live god. No one has found one before. He wanted to be the first in the poll. So this interests me to no end, and I'm hoping that this will be a good, strong run for them.
Sounds good.
Yep.
It's a very
There's a reason,
All right, go ahead.
by saying there's a reason you don't find them alive. I'm sure we'll find out what that is.
Yes.
Could be.
Well, if they're alive, they're going to want a starship.
What does God need with a starship?
That was what Guy meant.
For his own journey.
Okay, Liz, you're up again.
All right, since I did mine backwards, I'll give you my new one now.
Yeah.
Yay! This one is coming from Zenoscope, another one out of the Fables universe, and this one is with Belle. Kind of interesting. She's getting her own little short story because usually they center on Van Diesel and Robin. But she's pretty kick-ass too. She's the beast hunter of the group, of course, since that's why she's Belle. But she's always been known to fight the monsters kind of behind the scenes. Unlike, the other two, they don't care. This time there is some people who are being murdered in a little neighborhood. And so she's got to go save them because, of course, it's a beast. But it may not be because they said that this one is something unlike she's ever encountered. So with the name of Ghost and Goblins, should be pretty neat. A little different from what she's used to fighting. So, of course, you got David Franchini doing the story, so I won't doubt that it's going to be a pretty good one.
Yep.
Yep.
Should be fun.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Her previous
But I
stuff's
do
been
think-
good.
I think she's kind of one of the neglected ones, though. Every once in a while, they'll throw her a story.
Yeah, it has been a little bit, I think,
Yeah.
since she's had
Or
one.
throw her with the trio.
Right.
Alrighty, Mikey.
Okie dokie. So my quote-unquote old pick it is probably a fairly obvious one, but I don't think we've mentioned it in a while. So I'm going to throw out Hellboy here. And if you haven't read any of the Hellboy comics, please don't judge them by the movies. Because the movies just don't. Just ignore the movies and go check out, start at the beginning with the comics. Last year, they compiled all of them into all of the Hellboy stories into omnibus formats. So there are 4 omnibuses, and then there are another 2 omnibuses that are just collections of the short stories that are separate. Grab one of them because, like I said, don't trust anything you've been told about Hellboy. Hellboy should be experienced. There's some really interesting stories. I mean, especially if you're into like paranormal mystery type stuff. He's actually like an investigator, not just a guy who chugs brewskis and punches things. Yes, he punches things. That's part of the deal. But there's actually substance to the stories that go way beyond anything you've seen in any of the very mediocre movies that have been made. I mean, I'd like to give people credit for wanting to make a Hellboy movie, but it hasn't been done well yet. So check out these comics.
Cool.
I agree.
Alrighty. I am next, and for a title you may have missed, this was a miniseries that came out back in 2018, but there is a trade that your local comic shop should have. It's called The Last Siege, and this is from Image Comics. And it tells a story of a warlord who has been conquering the land, and there's one castle that's basically open to fighting him. And as it's trying to survive, a lone warrior shows up. And this has in the original synopsis, it talks about having a spaghetti western type of storytelling in a fantasy world. I agree with that totally. You definitely get that vibe. It was such a cool read, and I got to get it out there to say, hey, check this book out.
Yeah, I actually never heard that before. That's really the spaghetti western thing. That I never thought of it that way when I was reading that, but it makes a whole lot of sense now that you mention it.
Yeah,
it really does.
It was a great read. So
Yep.
Definitely check that out. All righty, Les.
My choice comes from DC. It's called Invasion. This was a 3-issue series that they put out back in the early 90s. Is that right?
Sounds about right, yeah.
Late 80s, sorry.
Okay.
And it covers all the titles for DC, yet this is just the basic storyline, the 3-issue storyline of the alien invasion of Earth. It's pretty amazing to see it go through this format and tell such a detailed story. It's one of those that I have found myself having to look back again and again to make sure I'm getting the story correct. Not that they're mistelling it, it's just that me not being able to handle it with my small brain. But I really recommend this one. It's a fun read, and it tells you a lot about several of the superheroes involved. The artwork is pretty over the top. You've got so many good chapters and inks. Todd McFarlane, P. Craig Russell, Al Gordon do the chapters along with Joe Rubinstein, and it's just great fun. It's a good, solid read.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've read that trade, but yeah, I remember it being a really cool read. Yeah, definitely check it out if you've not. Okay, any special mentions or shout-outs this week?
Nothing's springing to mind.
Nothing here.
Okay, I guess we'll go ahead and go to our regular shout-outs then. First off, want to thank Pop Goes the Culture Podcast Network for allowing us to be part of a great group of podcasts. There will be a link in the show notes. You can check out their fine work. Thank you guys, as always. I also want to thank the fine folks who make up Podern Family on Twitter for spreading the word of the fellowship. We highly recommend you check out their shows, and the easiest way to do that is to go to Twitter and do a search, hashtag Podern Family as one word, and just scroll through, and whatever catches your attention, just click on that link and download that episode, and hope you have a blast listening. Thank you guys. Also want to thank Manny the Martyr for supplying the music to our podcast. There'll be a link in the show notes where you can check out their music. Thank you guys. And finally, you dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. We appreciate your support as always, and we highly value your feedback. If you have a comment, question, suggestion, complaint, observation, what have you, please reach out to us. We would love to, we want to hear what you have to say. And there are several ways you can do that. Our email address is email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can go to the website and go to the About Us page, and there's a contact form there that you can fill out. Or you can go to the website, and on the main page, there's our Discord link, join our Discord. You can contact us through there as well. We're gonna keep promoting our Discord. It's a fun place. You should really join us.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's our social media. We're on Facebook, the Fellowship of the Geeks, and obviously we're on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Feel free to follow us there. If you like to follow our personal Twitter accounts, you can do that. Mike can be found at Mikey Geek. Liz can be found at LN_Geek. And I can be found at TomTC Geek. And from wherever you download our shows, if you would please rate and review our episodes, it would be greatly appreciated. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Yep. Stay safe.
Thanks for listening.
We do appreciate you listening and the support you give us every week. It's greatly appreciated. Until next time, geek on, my friends.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,